This House is in session. Minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, 20th March 2023 to be deferred.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the aforesaid minutes be deferred.
Seconder. The question is that the aforementioned minutes be deferred. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. The aforementioned minutes are hereby deferred.
Announcements by Your Honor, Speaker. Messages from Her Excellency the President, petitions, papers. Papers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am commanded to lay the Supreme Court Master of the High Court Salary Order 2023. I'm also commanded to lay the Ombudsman Salary Order 2023 and the Parliament Administration Salary Order 2023.
Government notices.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of a resolution to grant the sum of $28,100,000 from the Consolidated Fund and to place it at the disposal of the government to supplement the estimates 2022-2023 as shown in supplementary estimates number 8, 2022-2023.
Private members' notices, notices of questions, reports from select committees, first readings of bills.
Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the first reading of the Child Justice Bill 2023, as well as the first reading of the Water Reuse Bill 2023.
Beg to second that.
The question is that the aforementioned bills be read a first time. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
These came down. What would the judges say? The judges say
Okay. Statements by ministers, congratulatory and/or obituary speeches, personal explanations, motions for leave of absence, oral replies to questions, notices of motions for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance, orders of the day.
Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the suspension of Standing Orders 6, 16, 18, 20, 42, subsection 5, 43, and 44 for the remainder of the day's sitting.
The question is that the aforementioned standing orders be suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. The aforementioned standing orders are hereby suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to request the leave of the House in accordance with Section 55 of the Standing Orders for the water reuse bill, which is at order number 2, which was previously, notice was given on the 8th of February. The bill was read a first time on the 8th as well, and the bill was published in the official gazette on the 10th of February 2022. So I therefore beg to leave that we withdraw the bill in accordance with Section 55.
Question that the aforementioned bill be withdrawn. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. The aforementioned bill is withdrawn.
Government business, sir.
Government business is the order of the day. Thanks.
Order number 14, sir. In the name of the Honourable Leader of the House, to move that the House resolve itself into Standing Finance Committee to consider the grant of sums of money for the service of this island.
Understanding for them. How do we take care of the committees? Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that you do not leave the chair and that the House resolve itself into Standing Finance Committee.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into Standing Finance Committee. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
This House is now in Standing Finance Committee.
Mr. Chairman, in the name of the Honourable Leader of the House, to move the passing of a resolution to grant the sum of $28,100,000 from the Consolidated Fund and to place it at the disposal of the government to supplement the estimates 2022 to 2023 as shown in the supplementary estimates number 8, 2022 to 2023, which form the schedule to the resolution. Head 27, Ministry of Tourism and International Transport, in the amount of $5 million.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Chair. You recall, sir, that the Honourable Prime Minister, in delivering the budget statement during the second reading of the appropriation bill, indicated that the government was going to provide some resources to be able to resuscitate regional travel, given that last summer, post-COVID, and the demise of regional airlift, that the government intended to ensure that we did not experience a similar, experience anything similar this year that we experienced last year. And therefore, these sums of monies here is to support the BTMI, Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc., specifically, to be able to put sufficient airlift into the regional market in order to be able to kickstart and have a reasonable summer. By all indications, the ministry has indicated that from a summer cruising perspective, that the numbers and the forward bookings look strong for the summer, and therefore we want to ensure that from the airlift side as it relates to the region, that we have the capacity to be able to bring regional tourism back to Barbados, such that we can enjoy a strong summer performance. And therefore, Mr. Chairman, I beg to move then that Head 27 stand part.
The question is that Head 27 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, we say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 31, Ministry of Industry, Innovation, Science and Technology, in the amount of $2 million.
Honorable member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Chair. The Honourable Prime Minister indicated that the push with respect to enhancing the fashion industry in Barbados, we will provide some resources to augment what the Barbados Industrial Development Corporation is doing in collaboration with the National Culture Foundation to be able to help provide that impetus such that persons who are participating within the fashion industry, designers, sir, and the like, that we are able to enhance what they're doing, which is consistent, sir, with the overarching policy of the government to drive exports. And therefore, these $2 million here are being placed at the BIDC to essentially backstop, if you like, sir, and finance some of the sampling and supplying issues in being able to ensure that designers can get their products sampled such that when they go to the various trade shows, sir, that they have the capacity to be able to have the orders filled such that they're able to actually achieve what they want to achieve with respect to growth. And so, sir, with those very few words, I beg to move to Head 31, stand part.
The question is that Head 31 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 86, Ministry of Health and Wellness, in the amount of $5,500,000.
Honorable member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Chair. These sums of monies here indicated, allocated here, sir, are to support the expansion of the Accident and Emergency Department at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, sir. So this was announced by the Prime Minister again, sir, in the budget. And I'm sure that Barbadians who have had to utilize the facilities over the last year or so would have seen an improvement in terms of the physical plant. We now need to ensure that we can complete the entire space such that the flow and the logistics around the expansion can really redound to the benefit of enhancement of care for citizens. And therefore, these sums of monies are to accelerate the implementation of the finalization of that so that Barbadians can see an improved service at A&E, whilst obviously the QEH and the Ministry of Health will work on the broader objectives in terms of the delivery of health care. And so, sir, I beg to move that Head 86 stand part.
The question is that Head 86 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, we say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 91, Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment, in the amount of $12,600,000.
Honorable member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Chair. In the budget, the Honourable Prime Minister indicated that we will be embarking on a program which is going to support community sports in collaboration with the national sporting federations. and $3 million, sir, have been allocated to be able to help support the implementation of that program. So between the National Sports Council and the various federations, and 9.6 million, sir, to be able to create the mini stadia around the country in order to ensure that we build not just the capacity, but being able to ensure then that we can effectively, as far as possible, sir, create the opportunity to monetize as much of the participation as possible, such that whilst we are building and the capacity within the sporting space, that persons will have the facilities within the communities to be able to stage various events. It would be remiss of me, sir, not to indicate that clearly today being the culmination of sports, I want to wish all the athletes, sir, a healthy participation in the activities today. I urge all of them to strongly represent their various schools as best as they can, sir. But this government is intended to ensure that we build further capacity within the space in order to make sure that within the communities, sports can take place in a more organized way, closer to people, and therefore being able to work with the federations and putting capacity in will help to be able to deliver that specific mandate. And so, sir, with those very few words, I beg to move to Head 91, stand part.
The question is that Head 91 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 93, Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance.
Honorable member for Christchurch East
In the
Central.
amount, in the amount of $3 million, sir.
Thank you, Chair. These monies are to help support, sir, the NHC with respect to some of the operational expenses. The public will be aware that a lot of resources have been provided not just directly from central government, but equally through the catastrophe fund to be able to help respond to the challenges, not just the NHC, but RDC and UDC have been undertaking over the last few years. And these monies, sir, $3 million, are going to further support the operation of the NHC in relation to the execution of its mandate. And so with those few words, I'd beg to move to Head 93, stand part.
The question is that Head 93 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, we say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Report.
Chair, I beg to move that you do not report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of one money resolution in Standing Finance Committee.
The question is that I do not report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of one money resolution in Standing Finance Committee. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, we say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman has reported the passing of one money resolution in Standing Finance Committee. We'll do first and second reading, third reading. 1, 2, 3. First, second, and third. Honorable Leader, Government Business.
Speaker, I beg to move that the resolution be read a first time.
Question that the resolution be read a first time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Speaker, I beg to move that the resolution be read a second time.
Questions that the resolution be read a second time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Speaker, I beg to move that the resolution be now agreed to.
The question is that the resolution be now agreed to. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This resolution stands passed.
Mr. Speaker, we commit to statements by ministers.
Honorable member Sir Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, over many years, allegations have been made of unacceptable people management practices in various sectors of the economy. In recent decades, it has been particularly acute in the construction industry. The allegations include rates of pay by some companies that are lower than rates generally paid in the sector, the engaging of workers under the guise of subcontracting when the workers are really employees, not making deductions of contributions for a national insurance scheme as required by law, not paying the employer amounts to the national insurance scheme, deducting contract retention, which is a matter that relates only to contractors, from the wages of employees, forcing employees to procure and pay for their own uniforms, among others. For clarity, retention amounts are withheld by those who engage contractors as a safeguard for good work. There is normally a period attached to the retention provision so that a contract may include a retention of 5% for a period of 3 months. And during that 3-month period, the individual or organization that has engaged the contractor will inspect the work and ensure that it is of an acceptable standard. And this is known as snagging. The retention period is also the time when the contractor is able to complete matters that were his responsibility, but that may have been overlooked. As a party in government, we are conscious of and closely aligned to our roots. Those roots lying in the work of the now Right Excellent Sir Grantley Herbert Adams, and he and his colleagues fight on behalf of workers for decent conditions of work and reasonable rates of pay. That rooting ever in the forefront of our minds, we determined on coming to office that we could not allow this state of affairs to continue. The actions taken so far by government in the protection of workers. We set about discharging our moral responsibility in 2020 when Parliament debated and passed the Employment Prevention of Discrimination Act. This legislation was enacted to ensure that the diversity of workers in Barbados was respected and that they were protected against discrimination on the grounds of race, origin, political opinion, trade union affiliation, color, creed, sex, sexual orientation, social status, marital status, domestic partnership status, pregnancy, maternity, family responsibility, medical condition, disability, age, or physical feature, subject to situations that involve genuine occupational qualification, unjustifiable hardship, measures intended to achieve equality, care of minors, religious bodies and educational institutions administered in accordance with particular religious beliefs. In 2021, the Cabinet established for the first time in the country's history, a national minimum wage of $8.50 per hour, as well as a sectoral minimum wage for security officers at $9.25 per hour. This was influenced by the advocacy and work of the Barbados Workers Union, as well as the shop stewards of G4S. Establishing the national minimum wage was done recognizing that even in the middle of a pandemic, workers and their families were being severely impacted by rising prices and the imported inflation that is its principal driver. The rate used by many employers as the floor prior to the establishment of the national minimum wage was the rate set by virtue of the Shops Act for the category of workers known as shop assistants, that rate being $6.25 per hour. We did not stop there. Government, recognizing that while the Safety and Health at Work Act provided for establishing regulations to address in greater detail and give greater clarity in certain matters identified in the Act, there were no regulations. In 2022, we gazetted 8 regulations. These regulations cover noise, workstations, personal protective equipment, general duties, drinking water, sanitary conveniences, and washing facilities. A regulation was also gazetted to address the plight of one of the groups of workers we considered as a forgotten group, workers at fuel stations. This particular regulation, medical supervision, mandates that workers at fuel stations are entitled to certain medical tests on an annual basis at no cost to themselves. These, Mr. Speaker, represent some of what government has done to recognize the value of workers and protect them as they seek to be engaged, productive citizens who are able to lead fulfilling lives for their own benefit and the benefit of their dependents. This government operates on the principle that policy is one of the options at its disposal as it seeks to manage the affairs of state. The setting of a national minimum wage was one policy option to do right by the people of this country. Additionally, government has taken the position that those benefiting from contracts paid for by the public purse, that is to say, the taxpayers of this country, must be held to the highest standards with respect to the rates of pay and the conditions of work offered to their workers. We therefore turned our attention to the Labor Clauses Public Contracts Act, Cap 349 of the laws of Barbados. The Labor Clauses Public Contracts Act, Cap 349, was passed in 1952 under then Premier Grantley Adams and last amended in 1976 under then Prime Minister JMGM Tom Adams. The provisions of the Act closely mirror the articles of the International Labour Standard Convention C-94, which is titled Labour Clauses Public Contracts Convention 1949, which was ratified by Barbados on the 8th of May, 1967. The purpose of Cap 349 and Convention 94. The Act, Cap 349, serves to address certain terms and conditions of work for persons engaged in employment where the employment is directly related to construction, alteration, repair or demolition of public works, the manufacture, assembly, handling or shipment of materials, supplies, or equipment, and the performance of supply of services under a contract with any ministry, department, or agency of government, including secondary schools. The provisions of the Act include the requirement for a contractor to ensure the payment of wages and setting of hours of work that are commensurate with the standard in a particular trade or industry. The provision for the Chief Labor Officer, in the absence of existing standards, to consult with representatives of workers and employers to establish fair wages and conditions of employment. Certification by the contractor that the terms and conditions offered to employees are fair and reasonable. A mechanism for dispute resolution in the case of a dispute concerning wages and working conditions. The maintenance by the contractor of records concerning wages and time worked by employees. The prohibition of subletting, the transfer, or reassignment of a contract or a portion of it without the prior approval of the Chief Labor Officer. The prohibition of homework, except where such is the custom or practice within the industry. Recognition of the right of employees to be members of a trade union. The conditions that are to be met to facilitate payment to a contractor, and the binding of subcontractors to conform to all conditions in the main contract and to which the main contractor is held, and the responsibility of the main contractor to ensure that their subcontractors abide by said conditions. The ILO opines that the objectives of C94 are twofold. The first objective is to eliminate labor costs being used as an element of competition among bidders for public contracts by requiring that all bidders respect, at the minimum, country-specific established standards. The second objective is to assure that public contracts do not exert a downward pressure on wages and working conditions. That is, workers employed under public contracts are entitled to receive wages and enjoy working conditions that are no less favorable than those established for the same work in the area where the work is being done. Collective agreements, arbitration awards, and the national laws and regulations are described as being important in establishing equality regarding wages and conditions of work. The principles underpinning ILO Convention C94 remain of relevance today. As a matter of fact, the ILO Committee of Experts on the Application of Conventions and Recommendations in 2007 was moved to say, in light of globalization and intense competition, and I quote, "The objectives of the convention are even more valid today than they were 60 years ago," end quote. Issues found in the local context. Due to our inspections as a ministry, as well as from reports made to it, the Labor Department has become aware of certain malpractices in the industry. 3 of these are: 1, non-adherence to the fundamental principle of equal pay for work of equal value; 2, the misclassification of workers who are employees as subcontractors; and 3, the resulting breaking of the law with respect to deducting national insurance contributions and the remitting of those deductions along with the employer contributions. I have given clear instructions to the Chief Labor Officer and the Director of National Insurance that their respective inspectorates must intensify their efforts to ensure that the workers of this country are protected and that employers adhere to the legislation. Recently, it has been reported that in the construction sector, there are entities or contractors who are attempting to circumvent the law and seek to apply less than the set minimum rates. Some of these entities and contractors, we are informed, practice a business model where workers are employed to transport materials and equipment across the island and paid a rate which is below the national minimum, and are then told they must complete a certain number of trips per day or per week in order to earn a reasonable wage that would enable them to meet or exceed the minimum wage. This model could create a risk to the safety of the employee and the traveling public, as this type of approach encourages employees to travel on the roads in a manner that may endanger road users. Setting rates and conditions for the construction sector. The Barbados Workers Union and the shop stewards of C.O. Williams Construction Company have been striding and advocating for ensuring that taxpayers' dollars are not used to support situations where public contracts are unfairly granted to employers who pay workers less than reasonable rates and are then able to present bids that reflect the lower costs. Section 3 of the Labor Clauses Public Contracts Act provides that every public contract must be devised in accordance with the schedule to the Act. Paragraph 2 of the schedule stipulates that in the absence of established rates and conditions of work for a particular trade or industry, the Chief Labor Officer is authorized to consult with representatives of employers and employees to prepare and make available a schedule of fair and reasonable rates and conditions of employment for that trade or industry. In this context, the Barbados Workers Union and the Barbados Employers Confederation were engaged in the process of establishing fair wage rates for the construction sector. Those entities worked together to draw information on wage rates from existing negotiated collective agreements in the sector and compiled these rates through a tripartite process of consultation and discussion with the Chief Labor Officer. The process commenced in October 2022 and concluded in January 2023. The resulting schedule of rates sets out the floor rates that are to be applied for all work in the construction sector in the performing of public contracts. The schedule contains 8 groupings of work and rates, taking into account job categories, skill type, tasks performed, and the type of equipment operated where that applies. The established rates range from $8.50 per hour at the minimum to not less than $30 per hour at the maximum. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, to share just a few examples from each category. Category 1, maid or flag person, not less than $8.50 per hour. Category 2, general worker or pump assistant, not less than $11 per hour. Category 3, bobcat or small roller operator, not less than $14 per hour. Category 4, welder or electrician class B, not less than $16 per hour. Category 5, backhoe or low loader operator, not less than $19 per hour. Category 6, Caterpillar D6 bulldozer operator, not less than $23 per hour. Category 7, workshop foreman or Komatsu 450 excavator operator, not less than $25 per hour. Category 8, Caterpillar D9 or Komatsu D275 bulldozer operator, not less than $30 per hour. And this represents just examples of job functions in the various categories. With respect to conditions of work, the Safety and Health at Work Act is the law and will continue, by virtue of that fact, to form part of the conditions of employment in the construction sector. The Act and its already established regulations, along with the soon-to-be established regulation on providing guidance on the right to refuse dangerous tasks, are designed to help create a safe and healthy work environment for both employer and employee. Mr. Speaker, allow me to inform this chamber that we have approached some of the organizations that use best practice in the area of safety and health at work, and they have agreed to work with the ministry to assist smaller organizations that do not have the people, resources, and necessary skill sets to do all that is required for compliance. Other pieces of legislation that form part of the conditions of employment for all workers, including those in construction, and those working for employers who benefit from public contracts, include Holidays with Pay Act, Employment Prevention of Discrimination Act, Employment Sexual Harassment Prevention Act, Employment of Women Maternity Leave Act, and of course, the Employment Rights Act. As I mentioned before, and I am repeating it so that I am absolutely clear, under the Act, the Labor Clauses Public Contracts Act, rates of pay and conditions of work that must be followed by main contractors must also be adhered to by legitimate subcontractors. The main contractor is responsible for ensuring that subcontractors adhere to the rates and conditions. Additionally, I also repeat that the contractor shall not assign any portion of a contract to another party without the consent of the Chief Labor Officer. Mr. Speaker, the Labor Clauses Public Contracts Act and rates and conditions that have been set must be adhered to and used by all government ministries, departments, agencies, and school boards as they evaluate tenders and quotations from bidders. They must liaise with the Chief Labor Officer to ensure that all of the provisions of the Act are followed. I have spoken at some length about the process of setting rates and conditions for work performed in the execution of a public contract. Our work in the construction sector is but the beginning. Other sectors will also be addressed. Mr. Speaker, I must also inform the House that work is well on the way in our effort to strengthen the existing Labor Clauses Public Contracts Act. Cabinet in 2022 approved draft instructions for the Office of the Chief Parliamentary Counsel to prepare amendments that will provide greater clarity to government ministries, departments, and agencies, contractors, and workers, while giving more teeth to the Office of the Chief Labor Officer, which administers the Act. The Chief Parliamentary Counsel has prepared a draft amendment bill, and that bill has been reviewed by the Barbados Employers Confederation and the shop stewards of C.O. Williams Construction and their union, the Barbados Workers Union. Coming out of those consultations, additional drafting instructions are being prepared for submission to the Cabinet so that the CPC can make the necessary amendments to the first draft. We really should not have to legislate good behavior, but the practices of some necessitates that government acts to protect workers from unscrupulous employers who, in order to satiate their greed, would wish to deprive their workers of reasonable conditions of work, correct classification, fair wages, and social protection. This bad behavior is what we Bajans call unfairness, and it must stop. Mr. Speaker, I'm obliged to you.
Resolution. Mr. Speaker, recommittal of government business. Order number 11, in the name of the Honourable Minister in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, to move the passing of a resolution to approve the payment of an increased cost of living allowance to government pensioners.
Honourable for Christchurch, East Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As you would recall, sir, we met on Tuesday and we were able to pass the resolutions to support the industrial settlement with the unions in relation to a range of officers across the public service. These resolutions today, sir, will support the increases in relation to pension, sir, for those public servants who've retired and therefore will receive a 2% increase in their pension allowance, sir, from April 1st of 2023. As you know, sir, as negotiations are settled, these rates move in line with existing public servants, and therefore this resolution is intended to be able to bring that to regularity. Of course, sir, this is consistent in a sense, sir, with respect to the fact that we have also in the budget increased the tax threshold for pensioners from $40,000 to $45,000, and therefore this increase in pension, at least with respect to public service pensioners, will bring some relief there. For the avoidance of any doubt, sir, and just for clarity, there have been some questions in relation to what is happening with respect to the national insurance pension, sir. And I just want to share with the public that clearly the National Insurance Board will determine, obviously, at the appropriate time, how pensions would move, given the performance of the portfolio and in line with what is happening with respect to the economy. I know that the national insurance has been undergoing its national consultation, sir, in relation to pension reform, generally speaking, and therefore, at the appropriate time, those matters will be settled in the context of what is to be done with the greater set of reforms. But today, these resolutions, sir, speak to the increase as it relates to pensioners who are receiving a pension from the Treasury and the public service, and therefore there too will see an increase of 2% in relation to their pension, relative to the fact that the salaries negotiations, sir, were settled at 3%. As it relates to the rest of the order, sir, these are consistent with what we did on Tuesday, and therefore, with those settled, then it means then that from tomorrow, actually, sir, tomorrow, all of the rates of pay, all of the pensions now, sir, all of the allowances, sir, persons have received their $1,500 in addition to their allowances, sir. Those persons who do not get allowances, sir, and may be still subject to national insurance would have seen the deduction for national insurance as agreed with respect to with the unions. Payment was made on Wednesday, sir, and I do know that there may be some persons who are banking with the credit unions that may still yet to receive their monies, but between the bank and the credit union, sir, will be able to resolve that in short order, and therefore payments have been made in respect to what was discussed with the negotiated, sir, with the unions, and effective April 1st, then all public servants' salaries will increase by 3%. With respect to pensioners, their pensions will increase by 2% from April 1st, sir. And therefore, I hope that this in a small way would allow persons to plan a little better, things get a little easier, sir. We are still trying to make sure that we can contain as far as possible the cost of living with the measures that we are continuing, and therefore this really just represents an opportunity for persons to get a little more money, and hoping that it will go a long way, sir, with respect to easing a lot of the stress that we've experienced here over the last few years, particularly given COVID and what's happening with respect to the war and everything that pertains to that. And so, sir, with those very few words, I beg to move that this resolution do now pass.
The question is that the resolution do now pass. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This resolution stands passed. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 11:30 a.m.
The question is that this chamber be suspended until 11:30 a.m. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against it, please say no. Meeting, the ayes have it. This honourable chamber is suspended until 11:30 a.m.